Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I'm going to make this statement, and I stand by this statement, that there is nobody on this planet that knows gut health better than this guy. I'm being honest with you. Yes, there's doctors out there, they have a place, but they don't always get to the root of the challenge. They'll give you medication, take care of the symptoms, but not the root of what's causing your gut issues. He's got so much information at his fingertips, right at his brain. It's amazing what Josh Dech does in terms of helping people with their gut issues all around the world. He's back with us. Hey, Josh, how you doing?
Steve, pleasure to be here. That's quite a bold introduction. I appreciate it, but won't let my hubris get too ahead of me on that one.
I'm going by it because I've had gut issues and I've met with medical professionals and it's all good. But you have a more holistic approach to these challenges that many of us have. Before we even continue, share your website.
Yeah, if you guys need information, you can find all of that at gutsolution.ca. That's all singular.ca for Canada, gutsolution.ca.
Let's and today we really don't have a topic. We're just going all over the place in terms of what's going on with our guts, what issues we have. By the way, if you have a question for Josh, instant feedback steve@gmail.com is how to reach us. Have anybody said this to you? I'm eating better. I'm working out. I'm not losing weight. In fact, I gained a few pounds. By this point in my life, it's been a few weeks at least. I should be dropping a couple of pounds. What do you say to somebody that says that to you?
Well, this is a really interesting question. It's something I've actually called weight loss resistance. And I think the term's really caught on over the years, likely not from my seeding. It's become quite popular, but there are so many people who do exactly that. They eat less, they exercise, but they struggle to lose weight. And this is where we sort of chalked up to go, well, it's just genetic, or well, what I eat has nothing to do with it. But the reality is, we live in a highly toxic world, and toxins often that can't be processed through the body store in fat cells, and so they're actually getting stored and your body is creating more storage. So you can create more fat cells, or or I should say, we all have gut issues on some level. Went up to 72% of all Americans complain of having some kind of digestive issue once a week: gas, bloat, pain, constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux, cramping, something else. We know there's gut issues going on. Well, these gut issues, somewhere on the spectrum of a little bit to a lot bit, will impact your gut microbiome, which we know is directly connected to weight loss. There's some really interesting studies I could tell you about that I'd love to dive into, that they've shown the role of our gut bacteria in weight loss. So between that being messed up and our toxins overloading, it's no wonder so many of us are having so much trouble losing weight.
Wow. Let's say you are having occasional gut issues that can definitely attribute to your weight loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
So, I mean, it can either promote weight loss, because some people, it's that they're not able to eat, they can't break down, digest, absorb. So they're actually malnourished. We're lean because we're sick and malnourished. And we go, oh, I'm happy because culture says you're thin, you're fine. But it doesn't look at actual health markers. But if you are sick and you're having gut issues, it can very much, in many, many ways, be inhibiting or completely halting your weight loss progress.
Unbelievable. Wow. Things you learn here. What else should we talk about today?
Well, why don't we dive into this one a little, Steve? I'd love to give you an anecdote if we could.
Sure.
So, there were some interesting studies done on mice. And what they had done is they took healthy mice as the control group, right? That's the untouched mice we can measure very well. And then they had another set of mice where they cleaned out their gut bacteria as best they could, antibiotics and little rinses, and they flushed out their gut bacteria. So now you have an altered group that more closely will resemble an altered human gut bacteria. The healthy mice, the control group, they put them through exercise programs, on calorie deficits. They got all the benefits from exercise: the hormone boosting, the brain boosting, the detoxing pathways, the weight loss, all of those things. The unhealthy mice who had altered gut bacteria didn't get any of these benefits, or got very minimal. So they weren't losing weight. They didn't get the brain and health and cellular wellness or the detoxing benefits from exercise. But they took it one step further, and this is where things get really interesting. They had taken these mice because mice, as part of their regular diet, they eat feces. They just eat poop. They're little scavengers. And so they gave the stool or the feces from the healthy mice who got all these benefits from exercise. They gave that feces to the unhealthy mice. And guess what? They started losing weight. They started doing better. They started improving, and they actually gained some of the benefits from exercise without actually having to exercise. And this is the power of our gut bacteria. They literally create and destroy everything within our body. They connect to every aspect of our well-being. They signal detox pathways and genetic expression and all these different things. And it all comes back to our microbes. Mind-blowing stuff.
So is it reasonable to think that we're eating, a lot of us, figuratively speaking, CRAP?
I
Bad
would say it's
CRAP.
yes, we are. Here's what we call it. I mean, we have to look at the correlation, and we get a lot of people want to argue and say, well, correlation doesn't equal causation. But the correlation data suggests that obesity has skyrocketed since 1950s. Approximately 73% of adults in the USA are overweight. I believe it's 40% are classified as actually obese. And so there is an obesity crisis. We are one of the most overweight nations in the world, but we coincidentally have some of the worst food on planet Earth. Where we have, if you go to London, UK, look at McDonald's French fries. You get three ingredients. You get whatever fat or oil they're using, be it good or bad. It's oil, potatoes, and salt. Here, there are 17 different ingredients in the French fries. You look at cereals, you look at all the junk food, we look at things that have warning labels in European countries that are just handed out here for free. You go to the hospital where people are the most sick, where they're dying, and there's vending machines full of pop. There are fast food restaurants selling fast food and fried food. People with diabetes going through hospital medical treatment are given white bread and deli meats and juice and jello full of sugar. And diabetes is a sugar problem. So we have a systemic issue that even right from the top, we're being fed things that contribute to our sickness and disease
In the hospital.
in the hospital,
It's
where you
ridiculous.
should be getting better.
Why does the United States, and I know you're in Canada, so I don't know if it's a if it's a in our hemisphere situation,
Mhm.
why is that allowed where you go to other countries and it's more stringent?
Well, it's a North American problem. It depends how deep down this rabbit hole you want to go, but this is the reality is if you actually go to look at the data, you can go to the website, see who sponsors the Diabetes Association, Kellogg's and big food producers and all these different things, who has contracts and financial benefits from putting fast food restaurants in the hospitals. Well, the hospitals, the systems, we look at the FDA, who sponsors and pays them to do what they do. It's fast food companies, it's pharmaceutical companies. And so I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on, but the reality is when we actually look at the data, we can see that there is sponsorship and lobbying and financial incentive for these systems to keep us sick because there's a huge financial gain. The money is made on sick people. Steve, there's not much money made in health, very, very little, right? To keep you healthy, that's what the money is. When you're dead, little funeral, one-time purchase. But if you're constantly going in for surgeries, constantly going in for medication, you're on a lifetime subscription, we end up with what is now a $5 trillion business in the United States. And that's the US alone. North America is a whole problem. We have it here in Canada as well. And so, unfortunately, the financial incentive is there to keep putting these foods in the hospitals, to keep feeding these things to human beings. It's quite staggering when we look at it. Now, is that malice or is that strictly finances? That's a whole other conversation. But the idea is follow the money. The money doesn't lie.
I was afraid that was going to be your answer.
Yeah.
I kind of
Yeah.
suspected that. The 17 ingredients in fast food French fries in North America, I'm afraid to ask. Last night I was with somebody who got some French fries. I'm trying to be more mindful, so I'm cutting back and, just let me just have two or three. There,
Sure.
all right, maybe five or six. There's just something there. What's going on? What are in our French fries?
Well, it's all fillers. It's all preservatives. There's so many videos you can actually look at. People who have taken a McDonald's cheeseburger 20 years ago and it's been on top of their fridge or under the car seat. It looks the exact same. It's like you could pull it off the line and boom, pop and eat it. But there's so many preserves and fillers. And the reality is, not only does it preserve it, it also is part of the marketing process. Where if you want things McDonald's in Europe and in China and in America to all taste the exact same, you have to have the same manufacturing process to keep brand consistency. So it's got the same color, it's got the same dye, it's got the same product. It's cheaper to create because it's synthesized chemicals, not actual food. And so your food ingredients get less. It's like putting sawdust in something to thicken it or fill it out. It sells for more with less product. And so you're actually inflating the dollar value. We see these things for all kinds of reasons, but these chemicals and toxins, and many of them are known carcinogens. They're known to create DNA damage, genetic damage. We know they cause issues in your gut bacteria. And remember, your gut bacteria does everything. I make the argument it's as important as our DNA because it influences our DNA and our genetics. And the second it starts to get disrupted, we don't have diseases. We talked about the obesity crisis and all these foods rising since the 1950s. Well, diseases that never existed 75, 80 years ago, these foods we're eating now never existed then either. And so correlation, we have to start wondering how bad is it and how long does it take to kick in? Well, it's just one pack of French fries. And that's true. Eat it once a year. It's probably not going to kill you. It might have very little detriment. But to eat these 3, 4, 5 times a day, to eat fast food or packaged foods, basically anything in the center aisles of a grocery store, not around the outside, what are we consuming? And even then, around the outside, it's fruits and vegetables and things. Well, would you know, like the mist that they spray on top of your vegetables and produce? It's not water. It's actually a chlorinated bleach substance, highly diluted to keep bacteria off, to keep the fruit and vegetables crispy. You can actually, it's actually made headlines pretty recently in social media where people are taking pictures of these jugs. It's 0.004% chlorine and bleach, 96% or whatever it is other ingredients. And so we're even spraying what should be the healthy foods with unhealthy things, which we know have correlations to damage and issue and disease. And this is sort of why we've gotten here to the place where we are, which sounds like doom and gloom, but there is hope.
Well, it's great talking with you. We're going to go now.
We're just going to jump off a building now.
Right. Like, here, this is the perception, which is the reality. You go to the grocery store, you see the little mister things going on. It's like, oh, they're keeping it so fresh. Oh, look at how great that is. That's not water.
It's poison, unfortunately. I mean, you have to look at it this way. Any kind of pesticide, herbicide, fungicide, rodenticide, any side is used to kill a living organism. Well, our body, our guts have 100 trillion living organisms inside of them. And what is made to kill these other microbes will also kill what's inside your gut. And so it really does, on a grand scheme, make us sicker and sicker progressively. This is why people come in and say, well, I have a diagnosis, this condition, this disease, this gut issue. As you know, I specialize in Crohn's colitis, for example. Well, that's just an inflammatory condition, which is a byproduct of dysfunction. And dysfunction is a byproduct of the things we're ingesting in the form of poisons, toxins, and killers, killing the living organisms that are supposed to be doing the job. We have a factory that is outputting crap, but the factory workers are getting killed or wondering why the end product's not what it should be. And this is really what's happening on a microscopic level.
Unbelievable. Um, Truly unbelievable.
It's a little scary. Like I said, there's
Yeah,
hope.
a little bit, especially when you think you're eating well and you're staying out of the center section of the grocery store. Well, it's a toxic dump on the other side, on the edges.
It is.
Kristen from Silver Springs, Florida checks in. She says, I find that I need to go to the bathroom soon after I eat. It used to happen occasionally, but now it's happening more. Someone told me that it can be related to stress, which I've got a lot going on in my life now. Do you have any suggestions?
Great question, Kristen. Great question. So here's what I say. Stress doesn't make a healthy person have to go to the bathroom. And somebody who's got really bad inflammation, stress, they say, well, it's a trigger. Stress doesn't make a healthy bowel bleed, for example. And so we have to understand there's already an underlying problem, and that's the straw that broke the camel's back. And so if we look at why stress causes problems, it does inhibit digestive juices, stomach acid, digestive motility. And so the gut will either, you'll feel not hunger or you'll have increased transit time, typically for two reasons. One, you don't need more food. Your body said, we've had enough. Let's not put more in. It sends a signal back saying, slow down eating. You're full. Or two, it can't handle the food. And so it says, A, let's slow down your hunger. Or B, let's push it right through. Get it out as quick as I can. I can't handle this right now. I can't break down, digest, and absorb. And so we have little receptors in there that open up the floodgates. They create leaky gut. They actually draw water in to flush things out like you're putting your thumb over the hose on a driveway. They want to get things out of your bowel as quickly as it can. And so, especially when you're stressed, it could be you're not producing enough stomach acid. It could be that you're halting your digestive motility. And now your body has said, hold on, man, let's put a pause. Let's hit the brakes here and just get it out because I can't deal with it right now. Like when you're stressed, you have to leave the room. That's what your body's doing with the food. It's like, get it out of here and give us a little break. So we have to look at what's underlying and the damage that's possibly happening under the surface that's
Wow.
allowing a stressful event to trigger that problem.
Obviously, get rid of the stress or minimize it as much as possible. Um, but that being said, in Kristen's situation, it could be many, many different things.
Totally. Now, I can't speak to Kristen directly because, like I said, I'm not a medical doctor. So here's my legal jujitsu. If I was in Kristen's exact situation, wink, wink, what I might
Hypothetically
consider
thinking.
hypothetically is that I might consider a digestive enzyme when I'm eating, taking a few small breaths, trying to reduce the stress, avoiding eating during stressful situations, and even possibly looking at adding in some HCl, like stomach acid pills, provided you know you don't have H. pylori, or even a little apple cider vinegar diluted in water with meals to try to add some acidity. It's not perfect, but it's close enough and it can sort of help your body go through these natural processes. It might make things worse, the acids, but a digestive enzyme is rarely a bad thing.
I believe we spoke about that in the past.
Mhm.
What HCl or something you had mentioned?
You got it. Yeah. So the over-the-counter version of stomach acid you'll find is betaine HCl. That's Betaine HCl. And not all are made equally. There are, garbage companies out there. There's big fraud on Amazon where, 2% actually have what they say they're going to have and all kinds. But the idea being, if we can start replacing what our body is deficient in, we'll be able to more easily break down and digest our nutrients and absorb them, which can help mitigate some of the damages from stress or inflammation or whatever else you're dealing with. It's not a perfect scenario, there's more to it, but that's a really great place to start where you might feel better right away.
I want to talk about some of the surprising things like you're bringing up today. Excuse me. And this was like, for example, and now we're not throwing anybody under the bus, but um, I started having eating vegetable patties every once in a while in the morning. Add a piece of cheese, make my own breakfast sandwich, some light English muffin, whatever it might be. Get some carbs, get some protein. Um, Reasonably healthy, healthier than going to a fast food place by far. So I pick up Morningstar Farms. Farms looks like
Mm,
it tastes good. It seems better than eating meat, but then I look deeper into it, and it's made by Kellanova. And I'm like, never heard of that company before. And then you look a little bit further, that's another name for Kellogg's,
hmm.
the breakfast cereal people, Pringles, and all the other stuff.
Yep.
So it's amazing when you look at things in the store and you think that, oh, it's I'm doing something better. And I'm sure, if not that I'm consciously cutting back on meat, but I figured if it's plant-based and it's got protein in it, I'm in a better place. But kind of rubs me the wrong way knowing that it's, made by a breakfast cereal company and not just a little farm.
Yeah, well, it's really clever marketing. We put things in
Sure.
craft paper, brown paper to make it look
Yeah.
all natural. We use farm fresh. Well,
Right.
all the animal products we eat come from a farm. It doesn't actually mean anything. It's a romanticized term. We look at cage free. Well, most of the chickens are raised in giant warehouses, so to speak, technically not a
A
cage. So what
cage.
does it mean? Right? Or cruelty free. Well, there's no real definition of what is or is not literally considered cruelty. So it doesn't really mean anything. And so food producers have found really romantic words to sort of work around to get us to spend more money, to get us to be willing to buy the products when we're trying to be smart consumers. They're always a step ahead. And so it's packaged nicely. It looks nice. It's got this really nice earth color palette with greens and browns and reds and a sun in the corner of it. And it looks great. It says farm fresh. But what does it mean? Well, let's talk about that. It's a veggie patty, for example. You look on the back. What's a veggie patty? Well, it's vegetables refined and processed and chemicalized and added to and modified so much it kind of resembles a meat, right? But vegetables are not meat. So when we make them look like meat, what are we really eating? What chemicals, what refining? And this is where
Might
our
as well
food,
just eat meat, damn it.
just eat the meat, right? I mean, it's so much better for you. So it
I know,
really,
right?
it's just not
Oh,
food. It,
this is a painful conversation,
I know. I'm
Josh.
so sorry.
Painful.
Speaking of throwing people under the bus, and so we have to look at it more of being, say, a Franken food is what we call them, where they're as close as they can look to foods. But if you take Beyond Meat, for example, I've seen videos like roosters, hens, chickens. They are basically dinosaurs. They will literally scoop up and eat a mouse. They will eat bugs and rocks and whatever they can find. It's good for their gut. They will not eat Beyond Meat. You can throw that soy patty and that veggie patty down. They'll look at it and walk away, but they'll eat everything else. And so if the animals even, won't even eat it, who are like dumpsters of the farm, why are we eating it? And this is something we have to consider.
I got nothing to say. It's a scary situation. By the way, there's a great comedy bit George Carlin, the comedian, did
Mm,
back, I'm talking probably 40 years ago. And it talks about all those words in food marketing. And I'm trying to remember some of them, but one of them is like chocolatey goodness, chocolatey goodness. What does that mean? And, insert his language. It's not blank and chocolate.
hmm
It's not, it's just, all these words that are used to amplify nothing. And
Mm.
that's what that we're still doing it today.
Yeah, you won't call it ice cream. It'll be, icy dessert or icy chocolate treat or something.
Right.
And this is where it all comes down to. It's all marketing. It's always playing tricks. If you bring it back, you want to know who's making the food. I mean, your big producers are Kraft, Coca-Cola, Nestle, Procter and Gamble, Pepsi, General Mills, Kellogg's, Mars, Johnson and Johnson, and Unilever. They basically produce all the food you see in the grocery store. So you
Sure.
have, what is that? Nine different, or give or take, food producers who own Tide, Gain, Gerber, all your chocolates, all your bars, all your cereals, your fast food restaurants, they're all owned by the same stuff. Water, Dasani, Monster, Corn Flakes, whatever you're looking, even the gum you chew, all really comes back to the same stuff. And it's the same producers for a lot of it. And so if we really start, like, this is where I said there's hope, not to leave people on a doom and gloom. The hope of this whole thing, even if you live in like New York, go to a farm, drive to upstate New York, make some calls, go on a website, see who's there. You go, well, I don't want to buy meat from the grocery store. Having eaten farm fresh meat for years now, the grocery store tastes terrible
I agree.
because, oh, right, you can tell the difference.
Oh, I have a friend that bought a farm upstate New York, not even kidding.
Oh, there you
And he sent
go.
me, um, I'm not super close with him, but we're connected. And he sent me a whole bunch of fresh meat. It was
Mm,
frozen, but it came with dry ice and everything. To your point, what a difference. I know
mm.
there's more cost involved. And every once in a while, I'll get something vacuum sealed at a grocery store that's not even put there by the grocery store. It's shipped in. Tastes pretty good. I'm not really
Mm.
sure what I'm eating, how good it
Yes.
is. Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
here's my recommendation. Drive to upstate New York, bring a cooler, go in with 4 or 5 friends, take a road trip on the weekend, drive up a couple hours, and everybody spends $200 and you split a half a cow and you get the whole thing and it's already butchered. It's way cheaper farm to table and there's a lot more demand for it. And now in 2024, it's getting easier to find. And
hmm,
so if you're willing to do a little bit of the work, this is our trouble. We eat these foods because they're convenient, they're tasty, they're easy, they're simple, they're pre-made, they're whatever, and then we just go about our lives. But if we can do a little bit of work, go to the farms, do the research, see them yourself, make relationships, get people together, it can actually be just as much money as going to the grocery store and
sure.
sometimes even cheaper if you go and do it yourself.
But because of marketing and everything, victim myself, Morningstar Farms, I don't know what's in there. Again, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I'm just saying that is it's Kellogg's. So I think I'm eating something better, but to your point, it's better to eat just meat. What final question here? We're just about out of time. What won't you eat?
I
What
will
won't you
not
eat?
I will not eat inorganic fruit. It's actually wild. So a fella I follow, Gary Brecka, has made quite a name for himself recently, thanks to Grant Cardone. He's been all over speaking. Now, I haven't found the study, but I believe him when he says it. That there was a small study that was done where they took strawberries, non-organic strawberries, and they actually pressed them out, and there was enough pesticides in them to respray the crops. and we know how much they damage our gut. So I either go without fruit or I buy organic fruit. Because it's so expensive, maybe you go with less, but I will not eat inorganic fruit. It is highly toxic. Every year on the Environmental Working Group, that's ewg.org, they have the Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen list every year. Apples, strawberries, blueberries, spinach, grapes, like these things are on there because they're so laden with pesticides and they are damaging your gut. And that's my non-negotiable.
Thank you for sharing that. And I have strawberries in my refrigerator, and they're not organic, and I'm going to be throwing them out. And I'm not even kidding. Part of me says, how bad could it be? How bad could it be? I know organic's better, and I got to pay more, and I got to walk over there to get it, or maybe they don't have it here today, whatever it might be. How bad could it be? From what you just said, it's bad.
It's pretty bad. I talked to the farmers at the farmers market, and they do one fungicide spray at the beginning of the year and then no more pesticides throughout. So they're not technically organic. It costs a lot to get the organic label, but you can still find reduced or pesticide free, and they're just as much money, sometimes cheaper.
Gotcha. Josh, truly love talking with you. Just learn so much. It's fantastic. And you have the answers. Somebody has an issue, you have the answer, because of all the research, everything you've done, your medical connection, background, all of that. How do we find you? How do we improve our gut health?
Easiest way, get a hold of me at gutsolution.ca, all singular.ca for Canada, gutsolution.ca. You can put in a question, you can write into the show. I have a podcast there as well called Reverse Able, the Ultimate Gut Health Podcast. Drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Please forgive me. I had half a donut last night.
You know what? I had a podcast episode with a doctor who was talking about gluten. I went out and threw away my cinnamon raisin English muffins. So we're on the same page.
Oh, I love them too. I don't eat them that much,
know.
but yeah. And it was an impulse. I was at a girlfriend's house last night. She goes, "Oh yeah, we bought, all these donuts." And it's from a kind of a famous local bakery. I wasn't going to do it. And then the subconscious in me kicked in. And I think that's a whole other topic, where it was like, you know what? Remember you had that jelly donut as a kid? It made you feel good and all warm and fuzzy. Just take a bite or take another bite. And
I do it too, Steve. Once in a while, I'll go out and I'll have a little bit, but it's just knowing what choices you're making. That's what's important. That's all that matters.
Yes, or being intentional. All right, so have a bite or two, not 3 donuts or whatever it might be. Always a pleasure, Josh. We'll talk soon, okay?
Likewise. Looking forward to it.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcasts on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.